What is up, guys? In today's video I'm going to be going over some underrated loot spots in chapter 4 season 4 if you guys want to have, an easier early game and hopefully get easier wins. As always, if you guys do find this video helpful and informative, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you like to see more, and comment down below where your favorite place to land has been so far in season 4. So with the start of the season, everybody was landing at the mythic POIs, so there really wasn't much of a need for more of these low-key spots. But I've noticed as time has gone on, less and less people have been landing at those mythic POIs. They're definitely still populated, but players have started to spread out again. So if you were landing at a spot like Brutal Bastion and it wasn't really contested the first few days, and now it's heavily contested, you might want to try landing some of these locations if you do want an easier early game. The first one we're going to talk about is going to be this volcano mountain and Japanese building on the outskirts of Mega City. In total, there's about 15 chests here, a few coolers, and a set of hollow chests outside the Japanese building, and you should have more than enough time after looting this to make it to either of the radio tower spawns that are on the right side of the map here, and potentially also clean up any players at Racetrack or coming from Racetrack before the boss will spawn at the radio tower. The way the radio towers work is there's going to be 3 per game, and they kind of alternate from game to game. There will always be one on the right side of the map, and which one it will alternate between these 2 spots here, but it will always be one of these every game, and this spot has, a fine route to get to either of those in time. And with a lot of these locations, it's not like you're going to be getting the most loot in the world. If these places had a ridiculous amount of loot, there would be more players landing there, But it's more of something where you get an okay amount of starting loot, and then from there, play the game out in such a way to get more loot. And that's kind of why I highlighted, going to the radio towers, but also potentially going to clean up Racetrack, because Racetrack in of itself is a fine location. It has an okay amount of loot, but it also is a lot more chaotic than some of the spots we're going to talk about, and it gets third-partied from so many different areas, this being one of them. So just keep in mind with these locations, they're not the most loot. It's more of just a decent starting point, and then you go from there and get more loot over the course of the game. So this volcano mountain and Japanese building here, I think is a fine landing spot for solos, duos, maybe trios. It gets a little sketchy at that point. But that's kind of the case for all of these locations. Is the less loot you have in a POI, the less contested it's going to be, but also the less likely it is to be viable for some of the team game modes. The next spot we're going to talk about is going to be Trailer Park. This has been a solid landing spot pretty much since the start of Chapter 4, and with the addition of radio towers, I think this place got even better as it's close to 3 potential spawns. As far as loot goes, this place doesn't have the most like the previous one. It only has 6 chest spawns, but it does have 5 coolers and a vending machine at the gas station, which means heals shouldn't be a problem for you at all. There's also hollow chest spawns at the gas station itself, if you are able to find a key. But nearby, across the bridge, there's a slurp truck and small house with even more loot, and if you were playing something like duos, if you weren't immediately contested, you could land 1 trailer park, 1 at this house, loot that very quickly, or, some amount of that if you're playing team game modes. And then from there, you can go to Frenzy to clean that place up, or whatever radio tower spawn, because there is a radio tower at Frenzy, which is incredibly close to this POI, but also the 2 radio tower potential spawns on the right side of the map are also well within distance of Trailer Park. So depending on what radio tower spawn and just kind of how you feel like playing, you have a lot of options from this spot. You could go third-party Frenzy and get that tower, or if that one doesn't spawn, you should be able to make it to either of the ones on the right side of the map in time, and then third-party something like Racetrack and get more loot that way. Another spot that's really good that's probably going to want a third-party Racetrack is going to be Midmap Castle. This spot has only 9 chests and a cooler, but there are several barrels, which means you should get full HP guaranteed just off the barrels without using much of your heals. And then there's also an NPC that sells shockwaves here, which is incredible. You get 2 shockwaves for 36 gold, so for a little over 100 you can get max shockwaves off spawn, and he has a lot in stock. Your entire squad could land here and all get max shockwaves each for relatively cheap, which is one of the things that makes this place great. But another thing that makes it great is you're probably going to have very good timing on third-partying Racetrack or third-partying the gas station that's near you, and those are going to be easy fights for you to clean up, and then even more loot for you to get. And that's why I kind of talked about earlier, Racetrack is a fine landing location, but it's just kind of scuffed sometimes because of how many different areas on the map are likely going to rotate to it. And then also, as far as radio towers go, this Midmap Castle can get either of the ones on the right side relatively easily after, you know, cleaning up racetrack. But also there is a radio tower that can spawn at this brutal building north of it on the edge of the snow biome. If that tower spawns, you could just maybe loot castle and then go straight up there, loot that brutal building, and then get that radio tower the moment it spawns. This is another location which, you know, solid amount of loot, good rotations to radio towers, and then the fact that it has an NPC that sells shockwaves is incredible. And even if you don't want to really take advantage of landing at any of these locations, that NPC can be huge because this is really close to the middle of the map. So regardless of where you are on the map, if you need shockwaves, going to this NPC is likely going to be the play. And like I already said, his stock, he has a lot of shockwaves in stock. It would be kind of insane for him to get bought out in a match. The next location we're going to talk about is something very different. It's going to be the Brutal Building outside of Sanguine Suites. This spot only has 11 chests, but it does have a cooler spawn and a set of hollow chests as well. Not too crazy as far as loot goes, but what is really nice about this spot is it has a launch pad which is set up perfectly to kind of take you to the back door of Sanguine Suites. And if you go through this and then the vents, you can easily get to the boss room incredibly fast. And if you're landing here in like duos or trios, you can loot this Brutal Building pretty much instantly. Pad to Sanguine, and while the other people are kind of dealing with the chaos of landing at that place and having, you know, really hectic early game and having to fight off spawn, you can just be right into the boss room, relatively uncontested most of the time. And unless somebody is just flat out rushing the boss room the moment the game starts, you're probably going to beat them to it and be, you know, healthier on loot and HP at that point in the game because of these mythic POIs can be so scuffed off spawn. So this one is really nice if you've been struggling with Sanguine Suites and you want to get a mythic. I think this is one of the easier ways to get one. Sunstone Lagoon is going to be the final spot we talk about, and if you played last season, you're probably very familiar with this spot because it was where all of the summer challenges took place last season. It has 14 chest spawns and 7 cooler spawns, as well as a set of hollow chests, and there's a potential radio tower spawn right on it. This is the radio tower that will either spawn here or at Frenzy, so it's not like you're guaranteed to get a radio tower here every game. But there's another radio tower you could go to, maybe the Frozen Lake radio tower if that one spawns. You definitely should be able to loot Sunswoon and then make it there in time because you do have a lot of time before these radio towers end up spawning. And you can just kind of loot other stuff on the way to there because most of the stuff between Sunswoon Lagoon and the Ice Lake isn't the most contested stuff. You could also rotate to Rumble Ruins and kind of clean up that POI because that's where the NPC sells the exotic Maven. And just because of the timing of you looting Sunswoon Lagoon, getting a decent amount of loot, and then making it to Rumble Ruins, it's likely that somebody there has already bought it and is probably going to be fighting with it by the time you get there. So you could potentially, you know, go Sunswoon Lagoon, get a relatively easy start to the game, go Rumble Ruins, potentially snag a free exotic Maven off somebody who's fighting, and then maybe go back to your radio tower or go to the Ice Lake radio tower or maybe even the Frenzy radio tower if that one spawned instead of the one right on you. This is another spot that, you know, has an okay amount of loot but has a lot of options for how you want to play the game afterwards. And that's one of the nice things about these kind of more low-key uncontested spots is you'll usually get a relatively uncontested, like, safe early game, but you'll also usually get decent timing on third partying a POI where people have to actually fight, netting you easy kills and also, you know, more potential loot. And then a lot of these, like I kind of showed off in the video, are near radio towers, which are super important in Season 4. If you guys do not know what the radio towers do, when you eliminate the boss and put the card into the tower, you get forecast for the remainder of the game, meaning you'll always see where the next zone is. You also get a gold AR from the boss and slurp juices. It's a really, really good thing to do, and that's why I kind of wanted to highlight some of these more low-key spots that will still allow you to take advantage of the radio towers. As always, if you guys did find this helpful, informative, interesting, remember to give a like, subscribe if you'd like to see more, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.